Radio City Talks Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
And welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle, and it's that time of the week where we sit down and we talk about mental health in an open and honest way. If you've got a mental health story that you want to tell us on the programme, absolutely you can share it with us. If it's something you'd like to send through as a letter or an email, you can do. mick@radiocity.co.uk is the email address. You can send it in to mick@radiocity.co.uk. And I'm also open about on social media too. You can tweet the show live via @Radio City Talk, or get involved. I'm on there personally as well, @Mr. Mick Coyle. Get involved there too. If you've downloaded this as a podcast, thank you for doing that. But we're also live on the radio every weekday just after 2 o'clock, every Monday just after 2:15. I'm very pleased to say we've got a special guest in the studio who's going to tell us his story based on something we were discussing as part of last week's show. We were talking about the State of Mind weekend, and we were talking about mental health within the sport of rugby league. We've got a former rugby league pro with us in the studio now who's going to tell us his story. It's an incredible story, and this is a former professional athlete who's going on his own mental health journey. Welcome to the programme, Danny Sculthorpe. Danny, thank you for your time. It's great to see you.
No problem. Good to be here, Mick. Cheers.
Off air, Danny and I have just been sharing memories of me being a Cub reporter, starting out doing rugby league on Friday nights he was the JJB at the time,
yeah.
And you've been a Wigan Warriors player, but you moved on from Wigan to Bradford. And, we'll start with that one because your rugby league career was going well. You were a well-known name already because of the surname that you carry with you as well. But Danny Sculthorpe, people thought, there's a pro who's going about his business and he's making his way. His dreams have all come true.
Yeah, it was for a good 8 or 9 years, and then it all came to an end. You know, like you said, I started off at Wigan Warriors, 5 years there, played in the 2004 Challenge Cup final that we've just been speaking about. Represented England 8 times, lucky enough to captain England twice on a tour of South Africa. Went to Castleford, did a year at Cass, did 3 years at Wakefield, and in 2010 I signed for Bradford. And that's when things went a bit wrong. I was in my 3rd week of pre-season at Bradford lifting heavy weights in the gym, doing some squats, and I prolapsed a disc in my spine, which meant people think when you prolapse your disc, it's your disc moving out of place, which isn't quite right. Inside every disc you have like soft toothpaste substance that got squeezed out, formed around the disc and set hard like bone. It was trapping the sciatic nerve down my right leg, which meant I needed surgery. Waiting for surgery, woke up and all the sciatic had gone. Yes, I'm going to be back playing with my 30 best mates before I know it. But a week after the operation, I started getting these really bad pains in the bottom of my back, and I phoned the surgeon up and told him about these pains. He told me to go down and see him. He sent me down for an emergency MRI scan, and the results came back, and it showed that I'd picked up a massive MRSA infection in the bottom of my spine, an infection called septicemia, which can kill you. Luckily, it didn't with me, but it put me back in hospital for 3 months. They put me on the strongest painkillers you can be on. I was on morphine, fentanyl and ketamine for nearly 9 months. They put a Hickman line through my chest for me intravenous antibiotics, and then they told me that they needed to do further surgery because of the damage this infection had done. I woke up in recovery after this operation, and what they'd done, they took the full disc out at the L3-4 level, but they'd also took the bottom part of my spine away, and they'd fused me back with metal cages, rods and screws, which were massive news for me to take, so I weren't expecting all that. But when I came out of hospital, all I could do probably for the next 4 or 5 months was get out of my bed in the morning and sit on my couch. And then at night I used to get off my couch and go to my bed. I couldn't do anything with my children, I couldn't do anything with my wife, I couldn't help her cook or clean, do any school runs or anything like that. And then I got a phone call out of the blue off my agent to tell me that instead of Bradford Bulls paying me medical bills, putting me through physio, making sure even if I couldn't play rugby again that I had some sort of quality of life, they did none of that. What they decided to do was rip up my contract.
I mean, people at the time were covering this as they'd hear about a setback from a back injury, and the injury itself that you first had, presumably as a professional athlete, you'd heard about this injury before. Other pros were saying.
I'd had it done before in 2002, but I got it operated on and everything was great. When I first joined Wigan, everything was great. It's just when I got this infection and then Bradford did what they did to me, which meant I lost my job, my career. And eventually I lost my family house, and I had 2 young kids and a wife that I couldn't support, and that's why the depression started.
And in terms of, just to give people a picture as well, people will talk about professional sports stars and athletes. Rugby league players aren't in the same pay bracket as professional Premier League stars. So it's not like if you're not earning, you're not earning. Yeah. There's not like a big sponsorship package to carry your weight. You want to get your protection from the club and from what you're saying there, because you were just starting out. It just wasn't there.
Rugby league plays just like another job. You live month to month. So if you're not getting paid, as soon as your wages stop, you've not got a pile of money in the bank and you ain't got a massive pension to go back to. You know, it just meant everything got took away from me, and I couldn't afford my mortgage, I couldn't afford my bills, and that's why we lost everything.
That moment where you are not able to afford to pay the bills, and presumably the letters start to come through the door.
Yeah.
What's the process that you're going through in your own head there about thinking, oh, well, something will come up, or I'll get a bit of help from somewhere, or something will be round the corner, and then it doesn't come, and then essentially, you know, they get redder and redder and redder, these letters?
Yeah, it was because my body was in such a bad place. You know, I couldn't get off my couch for another 12 months afterwards. So I knew that I couldn't do anything in the immediate future to do anything about it. So it was just one of them things are just going to get worse and worse and worse. And I knew that I couldn't do anything about it. And that's why, you know, the suicidal thoughts came and all the depression started. And that's when I really started struggling.
Because when you got a young family as well, and a wife that you couldn't get out and about with, there wasn't an alternative for you. You know, I guess when you're doing that, you're thinking, well, okay, I'm not working at the moment, I can spend time with the kids, but you didn't have that as an option. Just it was a no-go.
No, I just couldn't do anything. You know, I was either on the couch or in my bed. You know, I was on massive amounts of these strong opiate drugs, so I was away with the furries most of the time, and every time my kids came to speak to me, I would snap at them. I would tell them to get away. I didn't want anything to do with them, which sounds quite horrible, but I just couldn't help it. It was just, you know, the mental health just took over me, you know, the suicidal thoughts. I couldn't get them out of my head. Every minute of every hour of every day was I was going to kill myself, and that's all I could think about. I couldn't think about my kids. I couldn't think about my wife. I couldn't think about anything else other than suicide.
Sometimes people talk about thinking about suicide in different ways, trying to apply logic to a situation, thinking, you know, people have said on this programme, you know, if I'm not here, then at least then, you know, there's an insurance payment that might, you know, pay for the house, and at least that's no longer under threat. Other people have talked about the fact that sometimes when you don't really know what to think, a suicidal thought is the most clarified thought you can actually get. That moment where you suddenly thought, I'm contemplating suicide here, was that a shock to you, or did it feel like a logical step to be thinking? To
be honest, I can't really answer that, because I was a total different person, a total different mindset. Now I'm in such a good place, physically, mentally, emotionally. If I try and get back to that place now, I can't get there, so I can't really answer that question.
Yeah. Do you feel like you justified it to yourself?
Yeah, I was on a car park in the middle of Wigan with a box full of pills that had killed half of Liverpool and a bottle of gin. I was going to take my own life, and the reason I'm going to take my own life because I thought everyone would be better off without me. And people talk about suicide being selfish, but it's probably the opposite of being selfish. You know, I was doing everything for my kids and my family, and that was the reason I was doing it. It wasn't for me to get out of the situation. It was just trying to better my kids and my wife's life, if you can understand what I'm saying.
No, absolutely, and everybody will look at this from a completely different point of view, but we're hearing Danny Sculthorpe's story on Radio City Talk on Mental Health Monday. You had your option there. You decided not to take that option. What was it? What was that chink of light, of hope? What was the moment there that thought, I'm going to go on a different path, I'm not going to go on this route?
I'm not really sure, but I think it would have been the devastation that I'd have left with my kids and my wife and my parents. And even though I thought I'd be doing them a favour, I probably realised at the time that the devastation that suicide causes is absolutely massive. You know, I've seen me best mate Terry Newton took his own life, and the devastation that caused when I was at his funeral, it was absolutely horrendous. And it was probably that. And I remember going home that day from the car park, putting everything away, and I was really gutted with myself and cheesed off that I'd not done it. But you know, I just got back onto the couch, and a couple of days had passed, and I was very lucky that I've got a real close family around me. They'd noticed a massive difference in my personality, and they walked into the front room. They said, "Right, Danny, you need to tell us what's going on. You're snapping at your kids all the time. You're not talking to your wife. You don't want to do anything. Please tell us what's going on." And I finally opened up to him, and just talking and talking and talking was the thing that saved my life. It was unbelievable.
Did you feel like there was something that you hadn't said that you felt you needed to say, or was it simply the process of talking that you think was the thing that...
Yeah, it was just talking. You know, I'd kept these feelings in for a long, long time, and that's when things start to snowball inside your brain. But as soon as I released that and then got them feelings, and I released the emotion that I was feeling inside my brain, once I got that off my chest and it was an unbelievable feeling. It felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders there and then.
You've come from the rugby league environment where, quote, men are men, and you've got those dressing room relationships that you got with your teammates as well. But equally, you'd had your own experience with Terry Newton, whose death inspired the State of Mind campaign. So you'd really been right at the heart of another suicide story, if you like, of a professional rugby league player who found himself in a position that he couldn't find a way out of as well. Could you see echoes of maybe what Terry might have been going through, or echoes of his story in your own mentality, in your own thinking?
Yeah, it was very similar. When Terry was going through what he was going through, he was on a rugby league programme called Super League Supermen, and on that show he was just saying how he felt like he'd let everyone down. He'd let his family, his friends, his teammates, when he got banned from the sport, this is. And he was basically waving that red flag to say, I need some help. But I didn't realise what I know now. I didn't understand mental health and what I know now. And if I did, then maybe I could have asked him a few questions the way he was feeling, and maybe the possibility, the answers that he gave, I could have got him some help for his mental health. And I was exactly the same. As rugby league players, we're always taught, never show emotion on the field, never show that you're injured, because the opposition will exploit that. And what the problem is with probably me and Terry, we were taking that into everyday life, and that's when problems were starting.
I want to ask you about sort of life as a sports star as well. Rugby league, for anyone who doesn't watch it, it's high impact constantly, and players are essentially doing shuttle runs for 80 minutes. So it's a non-stop. There's no let-up at any point. And you suggested there that you carried aspects of that into your normal life as well. Do you do anything now which tries to take you away from that, the sort of the constant impact, either physically or mentally? Meditation we've heard talked about on the show recently, just a bit of thought process, or was it the talking that really helped you out?
The medication helped. The talking helped, and also exercise helped. I got into boxing because for some strange reason I love getting it, and I love hitting people. It's just closest thing to rugby that I can do without running, because I can't run at all now. And the exercise of the endorphins that your body produces when you train hard, you go home, wet through with sweat, you go home, have a shower, sit down for your tea, there's no better feeling. And I absolutely love that. I also meditated deep breathing as well. When I'm feeling like things are getting on top of me, I'm getting a bit cheesed off, 10 to 15 really slow deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. It slows down your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, cools your body temperature down, and it really does work. And I probably spent most of my career addicted to sleeping medication as well, and I've managed to come off that. But to help me get to sleep without the medication, I used to do the deep breathing. And again, if you go to bed and you feel like you're not tired, 10 to 15 really slow deep breaths. It sounds really easy because, it's just breathing, but you never concentrate on breathing normally. But if you can concentrate on 10 to 15 really slow deep breaths, it works wonders. And, I've been able to sleep really well since I've come off all the medication.
Radio City Talk. Tackling the stigma.
OK, so we've got Danny Sculthorpe with us in the studio. My name's Mick Coyle. Danny's a former rugby league player who's been sharing his mental health journey. He picked up an injury, which meant as a result of it, he wasn't able to get out of bed or get off the sofa. He lost his house as a result. He's been talking about the opportunity he decided not to take when it came to taking his own life, and has decided instead to speak out, and used talking to people as a way of finding his own pathway through the troubles that he was finding. I wanted to talk about that, Danny, because people will hear you say, talking was the real difference. Was it when you first started talking? Did you talk for 20 minutes? Did you talk for half an hour? Did you have like 3 or 4 days? What was it? What was the intensity of that time?
Yeah, the first one was with my family when they called me out on it. Probably spent 2 hours talking, and then we all agreed that I was going to go and see my GP, who put me onto the antidepressant medication. But then I got in contact with the RFL, who got me talking to a counsellor from a clinic called Sporting Chance, which was set up by Tony Adams, the ex-England Arsenal captain. And I used to see my counsellor 3 times a week for an hour for a month. Then it'd go to twice a week for a month, then once a week for a month, then once a fortnight, once a month, once every 3 months. And now we just talk as friends on the phone. And my counsellor used to come in and see me, and I'd probably spend 55 minutes of that hour crying and just getting everything off my chest. But as soon as he walked out of the door and left, I felt so much better. It was unbelievable.
That first 2 hours, how did you feel at the end of that first 2 hours compared to how you'd felt sat in the car park, days before?
Just a massive relief. It was my critical turning point. That was my point from whether I was going to live or die, and just talking to my family just saved my life.
Was there anything that you said? Was there a particular, set of words that came out of your mouth that you thought, that's what I've been thinking, I've just not been able to say it?
It was just, I feel suicidal. I want to die. I don't feel like I deserve to be here. Just getting things like that, just getting it off my chest. You can start from anything really small, a low in mood or anything like that, but if you don't talk about the feelings and talk about your problems, then things can really, really snowball inside until, we get another Terry Newton and something tragic happens. It's just a matter of getting it off your chest.
What was the reaction? Because, of course, if you're speaking to your parents, your mum and dad, if you've got people listening to this, maybe got kids themselves, this idea of, hearing that from their son or daughter would be shocking, or you maybe think, well, I better not say that because it would be too upsetting. Your wife there too as well. Were they as upset as you were upon hearing it?
Yeah, we was all upset, but I think they probably knew what I was going through, but it was just a matter of them getting me to admit to myself. The first thing you've got to do when you're struggling with mental health is admit to yourself before you admit to anyone else. Soon as you can admit to yourself that you've got a problem, then things just get better from there on in.
And of course, your back wasn't being fixed by talking, was it? But how was your outlook changing at that point there as you went on the different pathway? Because your financial stresses, your financial worries were the same, presumably.
Yeah. It was just my physical health was still in a really, really bad way. But your mental health, your brain is what drives everything. Your body's just a tool. Everything's driven by your brain. So the first thing that you need to get fixed is your brain and your mental health, and then everything else follows. One of the hardest bits for me was when I came off the sick, and then I had to go on to job seekers. It was going into the the job centre when people would recognise me. There's Danny Sculthorpe, ex-Rugby League player, played for his country. What's he doing sat in job centre looking for a job? Getting paid £70 a week to look for jobs, and it was really, really degrading, and it was quite embarrassing, to be honest, and that had probably another impact on my mental health as well.
Yeah, I mean, was that one of the setbacks that you had on that journey, that you were thinking, okay, get myself back on my feet, but that of course involves you signing on and going through the processes, because you're just someone like anybody else, even though I've seen you playing for England.
It was really hard, going to the job centre. Then I'd have meetings at the Citizens Advice Bureau to see what bills and what stuff that I needed to pay off before other ones, and just getting advice from the Citizens Advice Bureau when you've been a professional sportsman and people have looked up to you. It was horrendous. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
The guys from State of Mind that we spoke to last week, Dr. Phil Cooper, people can listen back to that on previous episodes of the show, talked about how rugby league as a sport, though, has embraced mental health. How has the world of rugby league reacted to you? Because, some people might think, because they've heard about these things, you don't want to go near me. But actually, you're still very much involved in the sport, and the sports continue to embrace you.
Yeah. Soon as my story came out, the head of welfare, Emma Roswan at the RFL, got me on the disciplinary panel. So when the players get sent off in Super League, Championship, Division 1, they're coming up in front of me on a Tuesday night, which is quite ironic because I used to be up there every month. I also deliver workshops on betting and integrity for the Rugby League. And, I get players contacting me, Super League international players now, contacting me for advice on because the way they're feeling. But just a quick example on Rugby League. Before 2011, before Terry took his own life, the Rugby League used to have a confidential helpline for players who were struggling for their mental health. Not one single player have ever contacted it. But since 2011 and the stigma's been broken down regarding mental health, over 200 professional, and there's only about 900 in the country, over 200 players have sought help through Sporting Chance for mental health or addiction issues, which shows that the stigma is definitely going and breaking down, and that's why Rugby League is leading the way in any other professional sport.
And I guess as well, it's that thing where, the sport before 2011, 2010 could have said, well, we do have this. If people want to call it, they can do. But they didn't really talk about it, or the players didn't really know about it. You're getting out there now. People like you are getting out there and saying, this is available to you. it's a resource that you can use, and players are reacting to it, which just goes to show that if you offer something but also tell people about it, they'll take that opportunity.
Yeah, they will, definitely. You know, when back in 2011, 2010 and before that, players always thought that if they talk about the way they were feeling or talking about mental health, it was always a sign of weakness. But really what they've come to learn nowadays is that if you can admit you've got a problem and seek help and ask for help, you know, you're more of a man than if you don't and just sit in the background and take it. You know, you're more of a man if you can actually ask for help.
Can I ask you about medication and taking pills? You talked a lot about the things you've had to take as a result of your mental health worries, but you talked about sleeping pills as well. Presumably, you know, painkillers from your back injury and your ongoing injuries that you would have had. Do you ever feel like that the amount of stuff you were taking was having an impact on your mental health, or did you think, well, that was just something that the doctor or the club doctor was advising, so that was the thing that you just went about?
Yeah, I think the strong opiates were probably, when my back injury, they had a massive impact probably on my mental health. So I was in a total different world. You know, I was on the strongest Oxynorm, Oxycontin, all the strong morphine tablets. I was on fentanyl patches, 100 microgram, which is absolutely ridiculous what cancer patients, you know, terminal cancer patients are on. I was having shots of ketamine, which, you know, people take that on a night out. I cannot believe how they do that, because it was absolutely knocked me for six. It was absolutely ridiculous. And you know, throughout my career, like I said, I was addicted to sleeping tablets. I used to take paracetamol and anti-inflammatories before every training session because, you know, the training in rugby league is probably harder than the game. The easy bit is the game. The training is so hard. You know, you're in the gym, you're getting flogged on the field, you're absolutely smashing each other in training, and your body's in bits. They reckon every rugby league match is like 50 car crashes. So if you do 30 tackles and 20 hit-ups, every tackle's like a 30-mile-an-hour car crash. Your body's going to be in bits, and sometimes you need that little bit of help. But the problem is then when you start taking paracetamol and anti-inflams, and it leads to like stuff like tramadol and codeine and stuff like that, and that's when addiction can start.
Yeah, it sounds like you could have opened a pharmacy with the amount of stuff that you were taking there, and the stuff that like now. So now you're not in the game, you're still involved around the game, but you're not playing. Are you in a much better shape physically now? You know, so you don't have so many of those influences. You talked about, you know, dropping the sleeping pills in favour of you know, breathing exercises instead.
Yeah. I'm in the best place that I've been in probably for 15 years regarding no medication. You know, I'm a type 1 insulin-dependent diabetic, which I obviously take my insulin, but that again used to slow injuries, recovery down, being a type 1 diabetic. But the only thing I do take now is my insulin. You know, I'm off all medication, all antidepressants, all anti-inflammatories, and, you know, I'm in a really good place.
So how old are you now?
37. I forgot.
So you're involved in the sport now. Do you have a plan? You know, would you plan for where you want to be by the time you're 50? Because you started to get into the talking, the counselling side of things too.
Yeah, I love mental health. You know, I think it's never going to go away. But, you know, I've started a level 2 counselling course at Blackpool College. Absolutely love that. Then I'll do my level 3, level 4, and then hopefully can get a job within the Rugby League for helping players out and putting less strain on Sporting Chance. You know, because the Sporting Chance are absolutely brilliant, but it's costing Sporting Chance a lot of money. So hopefully I can get a job within the Rugby League and give them an hand.
And what's it like sitting in a classroom learning about the stuff that you've gone through from the other side to recognise it in other people? I
find it a lot easier because I've actually been there.
Have you always got your hand up going, well, actually?
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, the teacher's telling us stuff, and sometimes if I don't agree with it, because I've actually been through it. You know, a lot of these teachers and counsellors have never been through mental health issues, and I think it'll just make me a stronger, more positive, more of a better counsellor because I've actually been through it, you know, not just because of what I've learned from computers or sheets or from the tutoring. It's real life stuff.
And do you think, I mean, you talked about, you know, you're a rugby league player, but you were earning, you know, sort of average salaries and so on and so forth. But I guess if you go in to speak to somebody with a number of appearances, you've got in Super League, England appearances as well. If you go into a meeting or a counselling session with a professional athlete, it's not going to be like me talking, is it? It's going to be, hey, that's Danny Sculthorpe.
Yeah, I think it can be more powerful. You know, a lot of people did look up to me when I played, and, you know, if I can help see if a Wigan Rugby League fan came in and spoke to me, I think they'll really, really take to me. You know, I think it definitely won't hinder. It'll only help the job that I want to do for the client.
And how are people when you bump into them in the street now in Wigan?
Yeah, I still get recognised and stuff, but they recognise me for what I'm doing now. They've probably got more respect for me from what I do now from when I played. You know,
oh, you weren't that bad.
The end of the day, yeah, but the end of the day, over the last 5 years, we know that we've changed 25 people's minds on taking their own life, and if I can save one life in 40 years, 50 years, then I've done my job. But, you know, 25 people over the last 5 years, then, you know, I'm a very happy man.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, they're the 25 that you know about.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things, whenever people talk about mental health, we can never measure how it affects people just hearing about people talking about it and thinking, oh, actually that... Because a number of people who come on here and they talk about, you know, a blog post that they wrote or just something that they said to their mates in a pub once, and that just sends everybody in different directions from their own mental health as well. So I think it's absolutely just class act what you're doing at the moment, Danny. It's great to get you on the programme. Really appreciate it. People want to find out more about the work that you're doing or state of mind or the various different things that you're involved in outside of the Rugby League disciplinary stuff. Where can they head to? You're on social media.
Yeah, we're on SOM Rugby League on Twitter. We've also got a website, www.stateofmindsport.org. We have an In Your Area site, so if you're from Liverpool, St Helens, Leeds, Warrington, wherever you live, we have an In Your Area. Type on that, type on the area, and all the helplines of whatever you need, whatever help you need will come up, and you know, you can get help 24/7.
But if you're a rugby league player who's been sin-binned 15 times in the last 15 games, he can't help you through those means, but he'll see you in Leeds.
I'll ban you, yeah.
Danny, class, great to get you on the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Thanks. Danny Sculthorpe, former Rugby League star as well, joining us on Mental Health Monday. If you want to share your story or maybe listening to Danny, you want to get involved in the programme, drop us an email. Tell me about yourself, mick@radiocity.co.uk. That's mick@radiocity.co.uk. You can email your thoughts into the show maybe. Can read them out if you want to read them out, or if you want to be a guest on the show, share your own mental health story. More than happy to share it here on Radio City Talk and Mental Health Monday. If you just downloaded this as a podcast, thank you. Please like, subscribe and share with your friends through social media. If you listen on the radio now, you're with Radio City Talk.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
This is Radio City Talk.